Second semester senior.
First semester senior.
First semester senior.
Going through.
We're at Cumberland Avenue once again at the Clinton County Historical Association Museum, and we're gonna, as I said the last 6 times, we're gonna do it till we get it right, Ken Wray,
Right.
aren't we?
We're going to do it till we get it right.
We've had so much fun looking at photographs. We're going to look at lots more photographs today, but we're going to talk about a lot of other things. You have a young lady with you here today.
We have Suzanne. She's an anthropology major. First year?
No, I'm a senior.
Senior. And
What's your
Suzanne
last name? I forgot.
Fountain.
Fountain. Oh, that's a good popular local name. Are you from Plattsburgh, Suzanne?
Yes.
Where do you live?
West Shazy.
Of course. See that? Fountain's a good North Country name.
Suzanne is inventorying our textiles and sorting so that we know what we have now, because in the move everything kind of got mixed up a little, and we have great finds. These are gloves that were worn at a wedding
Oh, look at this.
for a lady in Keysville by the name of,
Margaret Hopkins.
Margaret Hopkins.
married to
She's got it all written down in the book.
that's
Evan Boardman of Essex.
And we're talking about 1914, I think you said.
I think.
Did you somewhere around that time period?
Yeah, I believe so. I can't quite find it.
That's
1914.
Oh my goodness, look at this. And as John said when we walked in, it's kind of rare to have the whole package.
Including
You have everything here. Look at this spectacular
including
gown.
the wedding pictures.
Including the wedding pictures? Come on.
Yes, we do. This is
Oh, look at this. Hold this up so Calvin can get a shot of this. Absolutely beautiful. This is what they, on the road show, would call provenance. Because it's all here. Look at this.
that's the gown.
Of course that's the gown. Oh, isn't that
It's
beautiful?
quite amazing the amount of things we found in here. We found a wedding invitation, a little checklist of before, like what's going on during the wedding.
Look at this little tiny little writing in this.
A little, this is a souvenir book that she received as a present,
Oh, isn't it
the
beautiful?
bride souvenir.
Oh, isn't it beautiful? Take a look at this.
Even a newspaper clipping announcing the wedding.
Oh, absolutely pristine condition. Oh my goodness. And another little book there of some kind.
This book shows everyone who was invited on one end of the book, and then it shows what everyone gave on the other as presents.
Pretty neat, isn't it?
Isn't that absolutely?
That's some of the finds that we have here.
Oh.
This will make a great exhibit when we move.
Can you, and this is one of the, how long have you been here helping out?
Only 2 weeks now.
But she's doing a great job.
Let's talk
Great
a little,
job.
just a little for 1 second about you and how you got interested in this. What have you been studying at school?
Well, I started out doing education as a major, but then I sort of got out of it, and I realized I really liked anthropology. And you'd think anthropology and museums doesn't really go together, but there's so many branches of anthropology that actually museum work kind of ties into it. And I always found museums interesting, so I thought, why don't I work at a museum?
So this is an actual internship.
Yes.
Last one semester?
I'm going to have it last through the summer, and hopefully I'll be able to continue through the
I
semester.
don't think they'll let you go. You're way too valuable a tool to go. And besides, you might become so excited that you won't want to leave.
We're glad to have her. She takes a big weight off of me.
Isn't it? It's so much fun, isn't it? So what actually have you been doing besides?
Well, mainly I've been doing the textiles. I mean, going from box to box, there's so many different things you can find. I found hats, coats, all sorts of women's dresses, undergarments. I even found in an old coat a really old pocket watch that
Silver.
Come on, that nobody knew was there.
No.
You gotta be kidding. Did you wind it up to see it ran?
there's no key to it.
Oh, I have keys. I have ways. I'm a collector of pocket watches and clocks in general. Isn't that great?
This was very unusual watch too.
Yeah.
You can check it out. You know, it's so much fun to do research on things like that, and that belonged to somebody had that hanging from a
True.
vest at some point in time.
You probably hear a lot of rustling. Everything is wrapped in acid-free paper
It's very
to help to
important.
preserve it.
Very important that these things be preserved properly, because hopefully they'll be around this museum to show to the public for a long, long time.
And what Suzanne is doing too to help preserve is when she rewraps them, you fold them a different direction, a different way, so
Makes
the
perfect
fold
sense, doesn't it?
is not always the same.
You know, I should mention here for our newer viewers, and it's hard to believe that somebody might be viewing this program for the first time. I mean, we're I won't say we're both old fogies, but let's just say that we've been here before and
Oh,
we've
yes.
done this before. This museum is in a state of flux. Things are changing all the time. We've watched it through many alterations down through the years, different venues, and now we're so excited because we are on the cusp, so to speak, of a big move
Yes.
to a huge, wonderful, new, exciting facility on the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base, and you can be part of it.
That's actually how I found out about coming here. I heard that they're moving to the Air Force Base, so I thought, well, they'll probably need someone to help move. So I came in and talked to the director, and he informed me that they weren't moving till the fall, but that I could come in and help catalog or work with the different things being stored upstairs.
Isn't this a good time, though, to get involved? Because what you know, you're working in virgin territory here. You're opening boxes that people haven't looked at for a long time. You're finding pocket watches in pockets and things
true.
like that, and that is so exciting because we, John took us upstairs at one point in time early when we started this series of programs, which seems like 100 years ago, and we looked at things on shelves, and we looked at textiles, and we looked at paintings, and we said, this stuff has got to be placed on display. One thing to get it all cataloged, it's another thing to share it with people, right?
A voice from the outer room.
Oh, get
Suzanne, tell them about what you found in the pocket last week.
She did.
I
We
did.
did.
Oh,
We've
sorry.
already covered that. Go have lunch, John, will ya? But isn't that cool? It is. It's kind of a discovery for you. And to make these things presentable to show to the public at some point in time on that, what we know will be a wonderful museum. This is something pretty neat for a guy like Ken, who's volunteered here for what, 12 years?
11 years, going on 12.
Close enough. Close enough. And to have all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but at some point in time in the fall to be able to make that move and finally let the public know what you've got.
It's true. Very true. This room that we're standing in has thousands of glass plate negatives that have been stored here, and one could make a photograph from any of them.
And all of them. And
And
maybe
there.
at some point in time they will be.
And they all need re-cataloging also.
Oh boy. Don't
It's a lot
ever
of
give
work.
up. Keep your pencil sharp.
A lot of work here.
It's wonderful. How many hours a day do you plan to spend here, or have you been spending?
Well, I've been trying to spend about 15 hours a week, although my other job has been getting in the way, and I've only been about maybe 10 to 12 hours a week. But hopefully, as I get my new job all worked out, I'll be able to get up to 15 hours.
What are the requirements of this internship now? This is part of an actual course of study for you?
Well, I'm trying to make it one. I have not been able to get a hold of my advisor, actually, to make the internship concrete. But I'm hoping that soon she'll answer my email and I'll be able to find out what I need to do. I'm assuming I
What's
need
her
to...
name? We'll put her on the spot right here. We're not afraid. No, we hope she does. We hope this all, because you're creating a piece of history yourself here, you know. I'm sure you have that sense. As you're opening these boxes and getting ready, you're writing another chapter. Right? So this is good for you, and certainly it's good for us and for the museum. And I, for one, even though I've only met you today, am delighted that you came here, and I think you're going to be a tremendous asset, no matter whether you get credit for it or not.
Right.
Thank
But
you.
You will. Suzanne, thanks for saying hi to us, and good luck. We'll check back with you later.
All right, thank you.
See you later. We're going to move into another room and look at more
All right,
pictures.
let's go to my office.
And we're into your private office here, Mr. Kenneth Wray at the Clinton
Right.
County Historical Museum. It was a pleasure to meet Suzanne Fountain. Calvin thought he heard her say that she was on the Mission of Hope to Nicaragua, and we might have interviewed her some time ago. Calvin reminded me that we've done more than 2 of those interviews with kids going and coming. It's a wonderful project. We're delighted
It
to
is.
support it in every possible way. Before we get into the actual pictures, let us just recapitulate. Let us look back at what's happened to you since the last time we talked to you. Are you getting calls and letters and
Day.
responses?
Day after day.
In the cemetery, they're assailing you.
In my hometown cemetery, even people were talking about the photographs.
Well,
Yeah, I get a lot of calls for reproducing them or wanting to buy them. Invariably, I get memberships out of that, which was
that's
the goal.
the name of the game.
Well, if we're going to move and have a real museum, we need the money.
We have talked about our viewers. How much does it cost to become a member?
$25, $40 for family. That's a year. You have access to the museum anytime it's open, or without appointment. Just come, and I'll take you through.
See, that's what we call ownership, right?
And and in most cases too, we'll take you through our storage area, and it's hard to believe what we do have.
Oh my goodness!
And
Well,
many people love to
you've
see
allowed
that.
our
Yeah.
cameras to peek in some of these corners. Just opening that textile box and finding
Right,
a wedding
with everything
from
in
90
it.
some years ago, and everything's there with the photographs and the little appointment books and the dress and the wow. I love it. So people have
great.
called you.
Yes, 561-0340.
He's not afraid. He's
All
even
day
gonna
long.
all day long, all night long. You were in the
Get a lot of
cemetery.
calls.
You were in
get
the
calls.
cemetery Memorial Day, and people walked up and mentioned the program. People have
Exactly.
come in to identify some of the photographs.
Oh yes, I've had many calls. As you know, Janet Downs from Peru
Oh, yes, we got her
sat
on
in
TV.
with us, and she
Then it didn't get
identified-
on, and she sent me another email. Gordy, I watched it. It wasn't on at that time.
Yeah,
Well, it eventually got on, and I'm sure Janet and every one of her friends and relatives got a chance
many
to see
people from all the surrounding communities call me and identify photos that perhaps we might misidentify even.
it. It's
And they-
amazing. Marie McGrath gave me a picture of her family house on Margaret Street, and she gave me a picture of a sled that they were loading ice on for an ice house, and it was some grandfather of hers, and she told me about the Turner. You know, we talk about Turner Heights and the Turner Estates, and she said the original Turner homestead was on Oak Street, right across from Oak Street School, that eventually became Lothlorien House, and there's so many people with so many pieces of this historical puzzle.
Yeah. Well, Plattsburgh is a historical town. It's just to get us out there and promote it.
We learned more about restaurants and bars than we ever dreamed, and we thought we knew. I thought I knew a lot about restaurants and bars.
True.
But we showed the old photographs, and that elicited a great deal of response because those old stores were turned into houses, many of them.
Sure.
And you said somebody called you and said, we saw the picture and that's the way it used to look.
Mm-hmm. Right. Or my father owned that, and I grew up there, and yeah. One of the ladies that, Joyce Favreau, that lives at Beekman Towers where I live, her father and mother had a restaurant, and her family name was Witherby, and it was shown in the photos. And she asked if she could have a copy, so I made her a copy, and when I brought it to her, she broke out in tears because she grew up as a little girl there. Yeah, and I gave her the picture.
Well, these are golden memories.
Exactly.
You're eliciting emotions and comments from people who haven't thought about things. And
Many
I've
people.
said it before, and we'll say it again during this program. photographs are magical. Somehow they retain so much of the emotion involved in
They
that
do.
moment. When kids see themselves when they were in kindergartens, outside of a
Right.
school, or walking down the street, or a family photograph, it immediately transports them back in time.
Well, when I go through a box of photos that I haven't seen, I usually take the magnifying glass and I study the faces, because many times over the years I've come in contact with so many people that I see a resemblance. And I think to myself, that has to be an ancestor, or somebody belongs to this particular family.
You're better
in
at that than I
photo.
am. But isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's meaningful for you, and therefore
But,
meaningful to our viewers.
I have looked at hundreds of thousands of photos, including the glass plate negatives. We have a view box that I lay on the table and put the glass plate negatives on it, and of course it's like developing it. But
Is
it's
it
still
really?
glass. Yeah, you can really see it very clear, and you get a good visual aspect of what the photograph is and who they are.
For at some point in time, we'll get another photographic expert on our program. We've interviewed John Wayne Johnston and other people who know a lot about photography and the history
Right.
of it. And I've done a lot of research for my newspaper columns about photography, but it's interesting to follow it from the beginning. You just told me about a bunch of tintypes that somebody
Oh.
brought up the street.
Brent Favreau, who lives here on Saley Avenue, loves history. He's a retired person. And just over the weekend, he found a shoebox about 2/3 full of tintypes. And he brought them in yesterday. And I went through them for about 2 hours. And it was amazing. Some had a photographer from Keysville, but no names on the photos. And I often wonder if they were shown, if somebody would recognize that that was their family.
Bring them in. You
You know.
should have had them. Well, we would have started with them today.
Call Brent, and the next time
Well,
we get
if
together.
we've had- How many chapters have we got here?
This is the eighth one with Ken.
This is, so there's bound to be another chapter, and we can get
All
Tim
right.
Tights here, and
We-
we'll do it.
we
Just a second, we're going to pause for just a moment and come back. My mother had a lot of quotes when I was growing up, and one of her quotes was, "Gordy, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions." Calvin said, "Stop the camera. Let's go get the Press Republic, and I want to show the front page of the Governor with all those kids from Moores and Rouse's Point," because the governor was in town yesterday. We've had quite a few public officials around here lately. But the fact is, that picture is worth 1,000 words, and 50 years from now, the emotion that will generate when kids who are then adults will see it. Even to see themselves in the paper today, because their parents and the kids had no clue they were going to be with the governor 24 hours before that happened. It was one of those last-minute things where the schools were called and the kids were out and they came down, and that Calvin had the same reaction to that photograph on the front page of the Press Republican. What this is the 2nd of June already, 2005, just so we identify the time and place for people. And so yes, that is a classic photograph, and that happens when people have met public figures and gone to the openings of public places down through the years, and that's significant for people, and that
Right.
just underlines what we were saying before about the tremendous meaning of photograph, because it stops time, right? But it holds it until you look at it.
Well, and when these kids grow up, they will be able to show their children.
Yeah, I
their
saw the governor.
grandchildren.
I saw,
Yeah.
and you know, I think about those things often because I have a very strange mind. If you haven't figured that out already, and I love it when somebody gives me a record that's been in an attic since 1904. You know, nobody has heard the sound on that record since that time. It was trapped there, and I put it on a Victrola, or I wind it up, or I put it on a record player, and that voice comes out for the first time in over 100 years, and that's meaningful for me. For that reason, and this is what we're talking about. You just took a deep breath, so you've got a thought, boy.
Yes, remind me when we finish this series, I have some in my trunk that I will give you that I found.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Many people move in and out of my building where I live in the senior high rise over on Truman Avenue, which used to be Beekman Court. I saw these old records piled up, the big ones, and I thought, wow, I wonder why they're throwing those away. And now that I'm here at the museum, I kind of, look at them first before they go anywhere. I brought them down here and went through them and went through a couple of books. And some of them are first edition records, first copies. And I didn't have the heart to take them anywhere or even sell them, whatever. But I'm going to give them to you
That's wonderful.
because, see, you have something to play them on.
I not
I
only
don't.
play them, but then I convert them to CDs so we can all
Well,
enjoy them. And if
some
there's
are
some that you
early-
want copies for,
Early jazz, early musicians from the
it's way too early to get me
30s
excited
and,
today.
but remind me before you leave.
You
because,
think I'll let you forget?
It's a good place
I'll
for
stand
them.
by your trunk till you go home.
Right.
That's wonderful. Okay. Onward and upward.
Now we're going to look at some photographs of early law officers, I believe maybe from the 1930s.
You know, we did, and maybe even before the 1930s, we did a wonderful program at Troop B headquarters in Raybrooke one time, and a tour that included a little historical sketch of the New York State Police in this area. And law enforcement in the North Country is traced by the history of the New York State Police this way. Lieutenant John Warner in the center, other officers unknown. It does not say what year it was, but aren't they? Look at the boots.
I see that.
Ooh,
Yeah.
where do you want them when we finish? Down or up?
Just flip it over.
See, flip it over, baby. All right.
This is more modern, of course, but you often wonder who are they and how did we get them?
Well, and you don't know that, do you?
No.
Well, it says modern patrol car with a sergeant standing by, New York State Police. Those things we could have figured out, probably on our own. Next time, say, hey, write the name down there so we'll know if it's
Right.
somebody's uncle.
This
or-
is where they trained in Malone.
Oh, listen. You see, now you're doing it to me. As you know, I spent a lot of my youth, a lot of my misspent youth, in Moira, just down the road. And of course, this was the Troop B headquarters in Malone. And every time I drive by, I look at that building, and it's something else completely now, but the building is essentially the same. And when they say barracks, they mean barracks, because there were barns for horses here in the old days, and
Oh,
you know
yeah.
there were a lot of rules and regulations governing the New York State Police at that time, and it was a real commitment.
The entries for the McMaster's Prize that we have every year, many of our copies of their stories are in this box down here. I pulled one written by an O'Neill from Moores Forks, my hometown, and it was all about the Black Horse Troop
Oh yeah.
that was in that area. And they got their orders every morning from the post office.
Post office is what
because
they
it would
did.
come in on
Sure.
telegraph. That's Colonel Chandler.
And the reason Colonel Chandler is significant is because he's the very first superintendent of the New York State Police. So I think that's important that we show his photograph
And
here.
this is the second superintendent. He also is identified.
Oh, Major Warner, huh? Major Warner.
He's that guy we saw earlier.
Could be. It could be in the first photograph.
Warner.
Yeah, it could very well be. Second
Yes.
superintendent of New York State Police. Calvin's going to get this whole thing together for us. Oh my. It's not horseback, but it's the next best thing, right? And we know this is around 1920. And we know it's a Model T Ford truck. We don't know the state trooper's name, but oh, that's beautiful. It's only once removed from the Keystone Cops. Remember those old?
This one is not so
Movies.
old, 1989. I think many people would
Oh my goodness.
know that gentleman.
Yes, we do.
He does them sideways.
I got him sideways, upside down, sideways. William Connolly, present superintendent of the New York State Police, at least he was at that time, which was 1989. Oh well, we got the whole we got the whole group here now. Again, 1920. We should have put that one with the other one, but it's close enough. Boy, I'll tell you, I wonder if they had sirens on them. If they did, maybe they had to crank them, the old crank sirens. I love it. And you know, Trooper Bill Bush is a dear friend of mine. Bill Bush may be retiring very soon now, but the reason I mention his name is because he's a friend, because his dad was a state trooper on horseback for a long time. I wish his dad were still alive, because this is one of the riding instructors that the troopers had back in those days.
Right, when they had
And
horses.
he talked about what life was like on horseback
Mhm.
in the early days of the New York State Police, way back when. He was also a guard, prison guard for a long time.
Now we're back in Plattsburgh again.
Oh, we passed the state police. This is Dock and Coal. I know where this is. And this is significant because this area of Lake Champlain lakefront is undergoing a tremendous metamorphosis and change.
Right.
I think those two words mean roughly the same thing because that's going to be significant. 4-H clubs. I think those boxes may contain chicks. What would you guess? You think that may be true? Because it says chick starter on every one of those bags there. So, oh boy, oh boy.
That's
You're
ground-
laughing. You've been there, haven't you?
Well, I wasn't in the 4-H, but I remember raising chicken.
Oh, raising chickens and
The
me
light
too.
bulbs and the incubators and, you know.
groundbreaking for the new post office on Miller Street in
Oh.
1963.
Oh my goodness! All of these people. These names and these faces will be familiar to hundreds and hundreds of our little corner viewers today. You know, look at, oh my goodness.
The
Some of those
dignitaries.
people are still around.
Mhm.
I recognize Jack Terrell and John Fitzpatrick, and who's that with a shovel? Is that Frank Stelzer?
Looks like it, doesn't it?
I don't know who this guy is with the nice hat. It almost looks like Sam Snead, but I'm sure it's not. And people are going to laugh at me saying, Gordy, that's my father. I know what you talk about. Well, Sam Snead.
And this was the ceremony of opening of the post office in 1963, 64.
Yeah, these are wonderful old photographs. How many more boxes of photographs do you have here that we don't know about?
My. Many, many. This was the original post office in 1910. That was on Oak Street.
Well, I've heard that it was there, but
I remember
I haven't seen this.
looking at other photos.
Really?
Yeah.
Is the building still there? No, huh?
I think the building is there, but it's totally changed.
I would think so, because it just
Part of
doesn't-
it is gone.
This doesn't look familiar to me. Unless it's somewhere near where the telephone building is there, I'm not sure. Boy, great stuff.
These are postal carriers. Oop, it was buried.
It's covered. All right.
It's pretty fragile. Early postal carriers.
This is a photograph of a photograph.
It tells who they are.
Oh my goodness. You tell me. Go ahead. You tell me who they are. This is
Carlisle, Edward St. Louis, and Thomas McKeith.
Isn't that a classic picture? It's from a kind of a damaged old photograph, but another photograph was taken. And this in itself is pretty ancient. Now, what would you say those uniforms are?
Postal carriers.
Postal carriers. My goodness, okay. You had it well preserved there in your acid-free paper, right?
Acid-free paper, yeah. We buy it by the roll.
Well, it's important to do that. And how many of these old photographs are in boxes
This
and
is-
attics?
Oh my, a lot of them. This is the custom. Oh, this was a custom house before it was the post office. That's 1914.
Oh. How many times?
It's the same building we showed a few minutes ago. 1914.
And this you know why this is significant? We've seen a lot of bunting on a lot of buildings, haven't we? That's what bunting is. But this photograph celebrates the centenary of the Battle of Plattsburgh in 1914. And we're about to go for the bicentennial
Right.
of the Battle of Plattsburgh. And the time is getting shorter. When we first started talking about that, it seemed like a long ways away, and Calvin and I were talking about pushing each other in wheelchairs and things, but the closer it gets, the more I'm quite sure that we're going to be there, and we'll be hopping around just
This is
about.
a basketball or a baseball team called the Plattsburgh Majors. This is the late 1930s or early 40s.
Well, you know,
I would imagine. It doesn't seem like so long ago to me, does it to you?
well, and we've talked about the Plattsburgh Major so many times. We might mention a couple of names that are on there. Cleveland Smith, the bat boy in the hat is Robert Proctor. I wonder if that would be Pickles Proctor. What was his first name?
I don't know.
Pine Mountain.
That could be.
Uh,
Pickles, talk about a legend in his own time, wasn't he?
the Morning Telegram, which later became the Press Republican, I believe that's Clinton Street, an early 1896.
That's a good study itself, and I don't know if anybody at the Press Republican is well versed in the history of newspapers in this area, but I have seen some that date back a long, long ways and have copies of some pretty old photographs. And you see on the side of the window it says July 4th, Peru, New York. Yeah, I look
Oh,
at
it does say
it's
it's
July
Peru,
4th, Peru, New York.
not Plattsburgh.
Well, that's just a poster.
Oh, it's a poster. Yeah, I think that's Plattsburgh. I believe it's Clinton Street.
You're
I've seen
probably
many.
right.
This is an early view of Dannemora. These are pretty well mixed up, these photos.
That's all right.
And
We
they-
like it that way. They're more of a surprise to us.
They
Wait,
have
I'm going
to
to
be,
read here. Yeah, Dannemora.
They have to be cataloged also.
Boy, these will bring back memories for some people then, huh? For those of you who want to look very carefully at these photographs for 5 or 6 minutes at a time, maybe you can pause your television or something, but
It's
we
an
have so many pictures to go through. We want to look at all of them.
1960 aerial view of Plattsburgh.
Oh my goodness. You know the thing that strikes me when I look at this picture more than anything else? Look at the trees.
It's
And
true.
the
Oh.
part of it is a lot of those trees are gone, and there's a lot of controversy right now over trees, and it's all Calvin's fault because we were walking around town with the mayor, and the mayor said that tree's gonna go. And now I see today they're talking about whether it's a pine or a spruce or whatever else.
Bruce.
It's a. What do we know? We're innocent bystanders.
I know.
We stick the microphone out there, and what people say we can't be responsible for. So will it stay or will it go? There'll be a.
That's another aerial view. I have several aerial views of the city.
You know, this is a.
From-
You know
David,
why this
that's-
is a very significant view? Because it's from the riverside.
Right.
It's a view that 99.9% of our viewers will never have, except
And-
in this photograph.
And like you say, the trees, we don't have many trees now in the city.
Well, we
And I'm
still
not
have
saying-
trees, but we don't. But a lot of the trees are gone. We've had, for one reason or another, and I don't want to cast blame on anybody. We've had elm blight, and we've
Yes.
had a lot of serious problems. But I like this photograph. It's significant also because McDonough Hall has undergone
Major changes.
major changes, and is still, the equipment is still on the front lawn as we speak now. Not to mention the fact that they claim that it's haunted.
This view here, of course, is the what was referred to as the normal school. Beekman Street would be down in here. This would be the fountain, but look at the trees that were there then in 1960.
Yeah, and this is a view that, once again, this is a view that most of our viewers of our little corner in Hometown Cable will never get to see,
We'll
except
never
in this
see.
photograph.
No.
That's kind of a nice picture. I like that.
Mhm.
These are
This
good
is
shots.
another.
You don't know what the source of these pictures.
No, they were just brought in and left, and we knew there were aerial views of the city, and
Yeah, well,
you
we've
can kind of pinpoint the
been
location.
in and around,
But all of the trees kind of throw you off in a little
and I
bit.
can tell you who took the pictures because I spent a lot of time talking with this guy in the old days, John Lonergan. We've talked about him before.
Mhm.
You talk about a fixture in and around the streets of downtown Plattsburgh, and at Brody's Bar with Gordy Little way back in the early 1960s. Oh yeah, these are all great shots. Wonderful shots.
There are several.
Now, how do these pictures all get to the museum? Somebody donates them?
Somebody brings them in and says, here, we're cleaning the attic or whatever. And
Isn't it amazing and wonderful that they do that? And I hope we can generate that kind of enthusiasm for preserving the past by inviting people to come in here. This is more of the same, but slightly different views
angles.
of what we were looking
Yeah.
at before. And I'm not sure that even in the college archives that they would have this complete collection. So,
I don't think
if
so.
people from the university are watching this program, you can call, what was that number again?
561-0340.
Oh, we get letters. We get
That's for
letters.
Suzanne.
Yeah, as for Suzanne, she'll say, what are they doing to me? I'm just a poor girl from West Jay-Z.
That one there, I put a note on it. Note the trees, which are not there now.
Well, that's what struck me in the very beginning. And I had somebody send me an email that hadn't been in Plattsburgh in like 50 years saying, I'm not sure I want to come back because I heard a lot of the beautiful old homes and buildings are gone. And we've done quite a few historical sketches, haven't we, of the Plattsburgh State Campus. We did one maybe 7 years ago on the fire at McDonough Hall and all the changes made. We talked a lot about the buildings that were raised when the campus expanded. And it continually expands, doesn't it?
Yes.
And we still haven't found the fountain from after the fire in the
No.
1920s.
This must be taken from the river area.
Yeah, it's similar, but you know, when they took these probably all in the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great collection. I'd love to see it.
This one is a little earlier, 1958.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's just a step back from the pictures we were looking at before,
Would
but
that be the
step way
Saranac?
back with the actual curve in the Saranac. And I'll even give credit that's listed on the back, the Continental Air Views Incorporated, North Hempstead Turnpike, East Norwich, New York,
The photographer.
April 1958, New York Teachers College, Plattsburgh. There you go. Isn't that cool? The ball diamond is evident right in the middle of the picture, isn't it?
That's Clinton Street in the 1900s.
I thought I had seen
Early
every
1900s.
photograph ever taken of downtown Plattsburgh, and
No.
you never cease to amaze me, Kenneth Ray.
That's a different view.
That's a different view.
But now it looks like an alley, but it was a beautiful street.
Well, we've talked about horse-drawn trolleys. There are no trolley.
Can we see it?
No, you can't see it. There's a horse-drawn trolley right there at the
Right.
side of the road. You can see the wooden wheels on it. And I think I may be one of the people who said there were never horse-drawn trolleys in Plattsburgh. And I should say never because there's proof that there was. It says White House on
Mhm.
it.
I believe it was a
ro-
company name for trolleys, horse-drawn.
Oh, I'm sorry to spend time on each one of these. I just love to look at barber shops and soda water, it says on that sign, and Smith Rocks, and you can see this is Clinton Street,
Yes,
this is Oak Street, and that was
Right.
the old Methodist church.
that's right.
And one of the biggest fires
Hmm.
Plattsburgh ever knew. When that place burned down, of course, then they built a new church in a completely different location.
That was LaPointe's Diner on Bridge Street, across from the D&H Railroad.
Oh, isn't it decent? I've seen this photograph before. It's a good word to use when referring to a diner, but it's a delicious
We
photograph.
use that a lot in exhibitions.
1894. The Point's Lunch, and there's an old flivver in the background, and golly gee.
There's
I love
a house on Macomb Street, very
Well,
palatial looking, 22 Macomb.
it's one of
That's
the most famous houses in town, because this house was built by Samuel Lowell in 1815. It says on the back it was rebuilt by S.P. Bowen in 1865, bought by John Howard in 1898, and by John McDowell in 1928. So there you get a little history of the building.
It's pretty ornate, isn't it? Almost looks like an estate.
And still very much there, and can be
yes.
viewed, and is in the old Allen Everest books of the famous homes of Clinton County, and so on and so on.
Turner Winslow House, 280 Cornelia, built in 1876.
Isn't it strange that you should show me this today after I just talked about Turner Estates? This, of course, is an apartment complex now, and the only thing left is the carriage house that you can see in the background, which is still apartments. And this, as I mentioned before, according to Marie McGrath and others who told me, was not the original Turner residence. That was down on Oak Street. So, E.S. Winslow House, 280 Cornelia Street, 1876, 1877.
This newly paved highway here on Margaret Street, from the dirt road to the paved.
Isn't this cool? I wonder what year. It's got old photographs, so it's
Probably
before
would be
19
in 1900,
well. It's
because
got-
I have one here that was done 1900.
This is
where
a
they're
little
getting-
newer than 1900. This is 19. The
They're
teens
getting
or
ready
20s.
to pave it.
Look at that.
It says...
Somebody will
19
recognize these houses, won't they? And
Oh,
these
yes.
buildings. I see a Texaco sign here. And look at the old paving blocks underneath there, the old stone.
It's a little later. The cars tell you 1920s.
Yeah, this is, oh, look at the old steamroller there on the street. Wait a minute, did we see that? Oh, yeah, we saw
Yes.
that one. Okay, I'm trying to keep up with you, Ken.
Here's a mystery.
Oh, yeah, we got a mystery?
Unidentified man, very distinguished looking man, Plattsburgh.
All right. Here we go. Our little corner viewers, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to call Ken Wray at the Clinton County Historical Museum at 5
5610340.
and tell us who that gentleman is. Somebody's great-grandfather, you know that, right?
Now we have a mystery for Calvin. It's a building, Champlain, New York. Question?
Oh, is it a school or a library? What would you guess? School?
Is that building on the left before you go over the bridge? Before it was expanded? I mean to Vermont from Rouse's Point? No?
Calvin is frowning.
He doesn't
The
recognize
three
it.
top experts in the field here have gone a blank.
Never seen it before.
Huh, it says Champlain.
Why would we get the Champlain question?
I don't know. I can't tell you. But I think that
Well.
phone's going to be jingling. If you thought you got calls before, I think this phone's going to jingle. I hope this program doesn't go on till I'm on vacation.
ROTC.
I hope Dr. Southwick doesn't recognize it because he'll call me.
Oh, he will. He'll call you too. He won't bother calling me. That was a fun show when he was down here. We got to
Yes.
invite him back again. We had a good time. We identified every single car and every single photograph.
Yeah, come back again.
He's an interesting conversationalist, a very bright and wonderful guy, and a charming guest to have on our program anytime. We have had him on before. Now, that goes back a few years too, doesn't it?
Here's some more. ROTC 1950. Look at the ladies' clothing.
Well, I'm more attracted to the
stylish.
pith helmets.
Pith helmets, yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? And that's 55 years ago. Just want our viewers to know that since we've recorded on this, with Ken, I went back to Moira to celebrate the 50th anniversary of my graduation from high
Oh
school.
my.
And that was an awful lot of
That's a
fun.
bomber outside of the air base.
Oh, and that's important too, because
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be moved. Hager and Hart Studio, 46 Margaret Street. This picture, it was stamped on March 10th, 1966.
Mm-hmm.
And these planes will be moved across the street
Right.
into a brand new Lewis Park.
Presidential campaign in 1968.
Nixon Lodge, huh? How about that? It's not appropriate that we're being talking about this after all the revelations about Deep Throat within the last few days. Oh, he's only 91 years old. I mean, my goodness. And my wife said this morning as they regurgitated that story again, when will it end?
Oh, here's another
It will never.
mystery for us. An unidentified hotel.
Oh, wow. It's a copy of an old photograph, and it just says on the back, unknown. Boy, I'm guessing that no one in our viewing audience will have a clue as to what this is. You think I can put him on the spot by saying that? I have no idea what it might be. It's nothing that's familiar to me. I love the dress, though.
Now here's another one. Of course, back then, Chateauguay Lake
This is
had
the
a
same.
lot of...
Wait a minute. Hold on. Same thing. This is the same building. The same two buildings from a different perspective. Both unidentified. This might ring a bell with somebody. It doesn't with me, but it might ring a bell with somebody. You know, there were some great tourist attractions around the North Country back in those days, and it could be anywhere. All right. I love it. These are nice shots.
This is a Catholic summer school. It's hard to believe there were so many beautiful buildings down there.
You
They're all
know,
gone.
it's all your fault too, Kenneth.
It is?
Every time I meet somebody, they're saying, Catholic summer school. What was the Catholic summer school? And I'm saying, Cliff Haven. Does it ring a bell? Cliff Haven. There was something else there before Cliff Haven?
It was like a city.
It was like a city.
And the buildings were massive.
Fabulous, big buildings. And
It's a grist mill at the foot of Mason Hill in Peru.
oh, yes, yes. We have also seen this photograph somewhere when we're talking about Mason Lumber Company. This is the old grist mill. We might have seen this when we were doing the photographs in the Peru Museum. I think so. It says office over in the corner, so we know what that
Yes,
is.
we've seen many pictures of that. The Hotel Champlain, that was after the fire of in 1910.
It's significant to show this every now and again because it's currently Clinton Community College on a bluff, which we've described as one of the most beautiful places on earth. We do have a certain bias. But you can see scaffolding on one end of the building where they're doing some serious work, and it's undergone many changes since then, of course.
This is the same hotel, but in 1890, so you can see its grandeur.
This is one of the more familiar photographs. I imagine this has been reproduced on postcards in the brochures of the day, because this hotel, the Hotel Champlain, was a very famous place.
Very. Actually,
Presidents came.
President Taft stayed there, had a suite there. This is him when he was there at Cliff Haven.
George T. Woodward, Cliff Haven, New York. Taft,
Mm-hmm.
without going into a complete biography of President Taft, I'll let our viewers use their imaginations. Let us just say he was a very interesting personality, very interesting personage, and he liked to eat about as much as I like to eat. He was quite a distinguished looking character there with that mustache.
These are volunteers for the First World War in front of the courthouse. Someone must have a loved one in that picture.
I have. Wow, this is amazing. I wrote a column about this. Somebody gave me this photograph and wondered what it was, and I talked about it without being able to show it on my column. Now we're showing it on television, and they were recruiting. These were recruits, right? And they were each given some kind of a,
All volunteers,
yeah,
yeah.
and you see the thing that they're wearing on I don't know if it's got a name and a number on it. Somebody told me that at the time. Very interesting. Taken by Brushes Studio, Plattsburgh, New York. Group in front of the courthouse. Who? Volunteers for World War I. That's exactly what it was. Interesting.
This is Theodore Roosevelt and Leonard Wood on the base.
Another photograph that I've seen, Bigelow.
Yeah, that's an original.
That's an original, and Bigelow signed his name on it down there, which is even more, this makes it even more interesting. It's a signed photograph. This became a very important photograph, and I believe this photograph was either on the front page or at least in the Sunday edition of the New York Times back in those days. Isn't it a classic view of Teddy?
It is.
With his gloves in his hand, as if he wants to slap somebody across the face saying, you know,
Straighten up.
pistols tomorrow morning at sunrise. And Leonard Wood, very significant.
It's the Fourth Company, 1917, on the base.
It looked like it was a little bit cool on the day the picture was taken.
If you notice the photograph, the development process, it's almost like a hologram when you turn it just a little bit.
It's interesting, isn't it? Donated by Roberta and Philip Weiss from the estate of Ethel Hazy, is it Pasquier?
Looks like
The widow of Willard Hazy?
Yeah.
Hazy?
Hazy.
Noted on page 97 of the Plattsburgher, 1917. Okay. Excuse me.
This one, unidentified again.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Must have been taken in the Adirondacks.
Obviously part of an Adirondack camp. It almost looks, Calvin might substantiate this, almost looks like a cottage from one of the great camps in the Adirondacks that they moved to the Adirondack Museum in Blue Mountain Lake. It almost looks, yeah, it's like almost like a tent next to it. Charles Derby Photographers, Morrisonville on the bottom. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Somebody's
So
family.
it's somebody from the area.
Yeah, but all Adirondack
Mm-hmm.
architecture, and that twig work, as they call it, is now very much in
This
demand.
is an accident in 1922.
D&H, photographed by Earl Sidney.
But it's, is it Sidney Earl or Earl Sidney?
I don't know. Looks like there might have been a loud crash just before this photograph was taken.
H.C. Earl.
H.C. Earl Sidney, New York.
Earl was my mother's maiden name. I've never seen this before. I never happened to pull it. I wonder if there's a connection there.
Oh, you better figure it out
My
then,
mother
because maybe there is.
was an Earl.
Look at the stuff that's piled up by the side
This
of
is,
the railroad. Isn't that great?
Part of the same collision.
Oh my goodness. Talk about some of these photographs of the old train wrecks are amazing. We've seen quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
When you stop to think about all the programs that Calvin and I have done together and the ones that he's done without me and with the late Bob Venn before that, we've covered a lot of territory, haven't we?
Unusual
And
photograph.
an
This is
almost
very
infinite
unusual.
variety of
This was
topics.
at Crown Point in 1963. Another railroad accident.
I don't think the tracks are supposed to go down there.
No.
I really don't.
But it's good to have them because then we can do an exhibit, you know?
Boy, oh boy. Wow. I don't know what I'm looking at up above there, but I think that's where the tracks were supposed to be, maybe, on top of the hill.
This is the 1973 photo. It apparently, I think maybe was passing through on an exhibit.
I think that was, this other one was washed out.
Yeah, that looked like a washout. And this is
Unusual showing.
this is an old engine. It looks like either an old engine or a reproduction of an old engine. It's a photo, it says March 20th, 1973, when something was passing through.
Sturbridge Lion, is it?
This is absolutely the Sturbridge Lion, the most famous of all engines. And it may be a reproduction of the Sturbridge Lion, but it's hard to tell. The photograph was taken in 1973.
Peg Barcombe would know.
Huh?
Peg Barcombe would know.
She would know?
Ralph Rossano too. He's a collector. He works over at the Automobile Museum. He has a train, collects all memorabilia of trains, especially engines.
That's cool. I don't remember the lion on the front of it.
It's a portrait of the Reed residence and family. I have no date, but it's an unusual print.
It's old, and it's a little bit faded, but I think you can see it all right. Melville Reed, Morgan Reed family, Lyndon. It's hard for me to read all of this, but it's Hattie Thompson sitting on the steps. Anyway, I found that out. All right.
This is the St. Hubert's Inn in Keene Valley, better known as the Osebo Club.
Yeah, I think we've shown this photograph or a similar photograph
Similar, I think.
in the past. So this picture at least will be familiar with some of the people who are on the program. Once again, let me just interject the fact that we're at the Clinton County Historical Museum at 3 Cumberland Avenue before the move to the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base, talking as we have often before with Ken Wray, who's been here for just about a dozen years, and we've been here. This is number
8 with Ken.
Number 8 with Ken. And we've been at the museum other times before that. This is another winter scene. This actual photograph is posted on the web. There are some very good websites if people want to noodle around and Google around to see pictures of old Plattsburgh. Quite a few people will start a website based on old photographs.
This picture of the Trinity Church, I don't believe the spire is on it now. Do you?
Probably not.
No.
Significant for a lot of reasons, but a great part of the history of Plattsburgh. This church is famous.
Famous for We Three Kings.
For We Three Kings, Glory and R, having been written there.
You have a little information on this old picture. It almost looks pre-Civil War.
Now this I've seen before. 1863. Take a look at this. This is one of those classic shots, isn't it, Ken? Just an absolutely glorious old photograph. Dr. and Mrs. Winslow's tent. U.S. Hospital, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. 1863. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a chimney at the back of that tent. So apparently they had ways of cooking and keeping warm in there, but this is probably a very historical photograph. And I'd like to do some more research about this. I have some dear friends who are reenactors, and they're going to Gettysburg later on in a few weeks for their reenactment celebration. And wait till I tell them that you have this photograph over there.
Well, a lot of times reenactors, you speak of reenactors, come in and want to look at old photos so they can copy what they were wearing to be authentic when they reenact.
Right.
And how they find the costumes are by looking at the old photographs and taking sketches
What better way?
and doing them. This is another photograph of Arvilla Anderson Bartlett, 88 years old, taken in 1908. There's a little history on the back.
It's not Whistler's mother, but it's close, huh? And another wonderful photograph. I love these pictures. Picture taken as a Christmas gift in 1908 when she was 88. She died in 1913 at the Vilas home.
Oh.
She was buried in Redford, October 16th, 1913, given by great-granddaughter, Miss Margaret Lunt, Toledo, Ohio.
My.
You just told me about a painting that just arrived from where? From Ohio?
From Oregon.
Oregon. Isn't
Moss Kent Platt.
it? Wow.
And the lady called, and I believe she was scaling down her home to move into senior apartments. Wanted to know if we wanted it. And of course, we couldn't afford to buy it because it would have been thousands of dollars. She offered to ship it to us if we would pay the shipping. We paid the shipping, and now we have a huge painting of Nathaniel Platt's son, Moss Kent Platt. I cleaned it the other day. I used peroxide, and the painting came out beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
I saw it briefly on the way
This
through.
could be one of John Southwick's relatives. It's a Colonel B.W. Southwick.
You're going to find out, I'll bet, before we're through. This is another Bigelow photograph.
Yeah, it's local, but, we don't have much history on it.
Colonel
might be-
B.W. Southwick.
Come on, John, give us a
John,
ring.
where are you? Can you hear me now?
That's like John.
Yeah.
Possible. Oops,
Could
I
be.
gotta put this
Oh,
there.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Are we having fun yet?
Here's-
Yes, we are.
here's
We'd love to.
another lady, look at that, from Peru. Pretty regal.
Oh, what a
1800s.
classy hairdo and gown, and we don't. It's Alberta Martin.
Mm-hmm.
We do not know if it's a wedding or what the occasion might have been.
Graduation, whatever.
Graduation, but it was captured
Mm-hmm.
at that moment in time. It is classic, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Boy, they wore some pretty tight corsets in those days. I can just see the old pictures of somebody standing in the back with their knee in the back, pulling on the
Strings.
corsets. Huh?
This is an unidentified family, 1920s. It's amazing how we get those, but sometimes you get them in garments. They'll bring them in and
Yeah,
throw a picture. And
nice looking family in a pristine photograph. Actually,
Mhm,
just like
it is.
brand new. It's like you said, it's been stored somewhere. Nobody did any real damage to it. And once again, somebody may recognize it, saying, "That's my grandmother."
Mhm.
It's really nice.
We have quite a few portraits of this one's not very clear, but it says soldier walking down Brinkerhoff Street in front of the Presbyterian Church, 1900. I don't know if you can get that, Calvin. It's pretty
Oh,
dark.
he can get close enough to get it. Yeah, it's. He sees the derby hat on there. That's wonderful.
This is a picture of the American Carbide Works on the Saranac River.
Oh wow! This is
That's an old original.
American. I can't read that. That doesn't look like
Oh
carbide.
no, it isn't Carbide. Looks
You-
like it begins with B.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not American, is it?
No.
Could be.
Yeah. No.
It's hard.
It almost
And it
looks
could
like
be the carbide, the old carbide dam. We apologize for I apologize for my lack of knowledge about history, but there was the old carbide dam. You know where that is,
Mm-hmm.
south of Plattsburgh. You can view the location off the Northway. It could very well be.
This is an unidentified family outing in 1890. Pretty neat, isn't it?
Oh my goodness! Look at the garments. It's so much to look at. There's a guy sitting there playing the guitar, and somebody on the ground with a ball, and somebody else with a bat, and the long dresses, and there is a photograph with personality all through it. Absolutely charming.
They probably have to stand still for a minute.
Yeah, stand still. Just hold that pose. Oh, the guy's got bowling pins. It almost looked like he might have been juggling over there. And oh my goodness, reflection of the trees and the water, and either a bottle of beer, or a bottle of wine down in the corner. And it said Nelson Fisk, and there's an arrow. So I don't know what that means, but somebody might have.
Identified one person.
Yeah.
This is a dam at Katyville.
This is Mill C, of course. The Mill C Dam is, many people viewing our program today will be familiar with it. Not that far from where I live.
Store in Saranac, 1874.
Oh gosh, I want to spend time looking at it before I show it to people. Absolutely, Saranac, 1874. Get a look at this. You can, in this very clear photograph, you can read the signs. It was the original store of Fred Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
Reduction prices, holidays, dry goods, black alpacas, it says on there. Dry goods, holidays are coming, dry goods.
That was, there's a note December 24th on the envelope.
And there horses, wooden sidewalks, and just interesting photograph all the way around.
That's another dam on the Saranac. I believe 1910 that was taken.
Oh golly, yes, that's the big dam again, the High Falls. It's the High Falls area. The Saranac River. Saranac River plays a huge role in the history of this area and all the mills and the, running the logs down the river.
That was taken in the Saranac Valley maneuvers in 1938.
Boy, this will evoke memories. This will evoke tremendous memories.
18th Infantry Division.
August 15th, 1939. This is a photograph that was taken by the Associated Press and was transmitted worldwide. The maneuvers here before the Second World War went on for years, and there are many families viewing now that are familiar with all of this, and stories about how they would make lunch and take sandwiches over, and the kids would take sandwiches and apples to the troops, and just some tremendous memories. And there are remnants of these maneuvers all along the Norrisville Road, for example, all the way up toward Macomb Park and elsewhere.
That's the courthouse again, 1917, 1918. Now I don't know.
Plattsburgh exceeded quota of 22 of 4.
Apparently they were raising money for the
May
war
3rd at noon,
effort.
raising money, yeah. Myron Kaplan, 92 Margaret Street, Plattsburgh, New York, another very familiar name. This is Brush Studios, but it was owned by Myron Kaplan, as I said. Oh, that's great. Great stuff.
This is a reproduction of Lion Mountain, something to do with the mines, but it has to be an old photo, I believe, because of the vehicle.
Yep. Yeah, here's another piece of equipment that will be familiar to those people who have had family members who worked in the mines, and that still generates a great deal of historical interest because of the background.
And this was down in the mines.
Gee, our friend should have had these pictures when he did his book. Look at this. And he might have had a copy of the original. This is beautiful. Yep.
This is Lion Mountain.
In the heyday, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That book and the program we did on the book generated a great deal of comment. Many of my friends called me on the telephone and called the authors, and
That's a reproduction of an old photo of Lion Mountain in the mines.
boy, that is old. This one is, you can
But
tell the
it
original
shows
was,
the working conditions weren't.
which were horrendous.
Were bad.
Lots of people lost their lives and limbs, and working in those mines for a long, long time.
That's Line Mountain again.
Oh, yeah. At a cold time of the year, too. What great pictures. Again, for those people just tuning in, we're at the Clinton County Historical Museum, and we're viewing old photographs with our friend Ken Wray, and having a good time doing it.
That's not all that old, but I think those three gents are now gone. Jay Davern, Orville Dunn, and Harold Cherry.
Yep.
Lawyers, I believe. Attorneys.
And this says Hager and Hart Studios, August 22nd, 1964. In case you didn't realize, that's 41 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they won. I'm trying to read on there. Their names are on there. I can see that. Can't tell what they won, though.
Somebody getting a plaque.
Certainly
maybe.
familiar faces, though.
Here's another Judge Long presenting a plaque to Jay Davern.
J. Davern, of course. Familiar names, that's for sure. And familiar faces to
This
me.
is Bridge Street, when Ginsburg had a furniture store there, looking south.
Looks like an old car of mine. I wonder if it was. Great shots. Great shots. Good place to trade, it says on the side of the building.
1949, Keysville, Ausable River Lodge. There's several people in there that I know are new.
Really? 1949.
When I was a kid in the shop in Keysville that Prescott owned, I used to work with this gentleman. His name was, I can't recall his first name, but we used to call him Tex because he was so tall, Lehue. This is a Thompson.
In the center, right
He's
under the G.
Right under the
Right under the G.
the letter. If you notice, there's only one man with a hat on. I wondered if he was bald-headed. This is a Thompson also, on each end.
That was number 149 F&AM, right?
Daniel Bigelow, I don't know, he was an artist, wasn't he?
And a photographer,
And a
yes.
photographer.
Yes. Boy, that's another great shot. I've seen this
That's a
photograph before. I
good
love this
picture.
photograph. What a great portrait. Yeah, that's just great. What a
Oh,
distinguished looking
here's a good
gentleman.
one. It's another mystery. Unidentified residence. Does that look familiar to
Yes,
you?
it does. If I thought long enough, I'll tell you what it was.
It had to be in the,
It's-
what,
It's
40s?
yeah, it's up on the hill.
course, the
Calvin, you've
house
seen
is
this
old.
photograph in Keysville. What is it? Calvin's not. He's always the one that pulls my chestnuts out of the fire. It's up on a hill, looking up from. We've seen this photograph, and somebody described it to us when we were in Keysville doing one of our shows. And it may be Ausable. It may be one of the original buildings from Ausable Chasm, part of the old hotel or up above. And I'm now totally embarrassed because I can't recall. My memory is horrible for details, but we've been shown this photograph before, and we're shown a view way down below that in the road that leads up to it. And I'll call it Ausable Chasm. What do I care?
All right. agree.
Somebody will call Ken Wray at, what was that number again?
561-0340.
I love
This is automobile at the Minor Foundation.
Oh man, I can't even. John
Dr. Southwick would like
John
that.
would love to tell us what that is. Because I
Looks
don't.
like Miner's car.
It could be Miner's car. Let's call it Miner's car.
His
I think that's
personal
his
car.
personal car.
Could you think so?
Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful.
Kennedy Bridge on Broad Street. A lot of trees.
And we were there when that bridge was dedicated too.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert Kennedy was here then, right? As I recall.
Here's another picture of it, but you can also see Pal Blade, which is now the farmer's market. Right? That's looking west a little bit, maybe southwest.
How about that, huh? Those are great pictures. I haven't seen those before.
Unidentified women in costume. Now, this is not too old. Someone must know who they are. And what was the function? Could have been something on the base, maybe.
Let me guess. Let me guess that this was part of the sesquicentennial in 1964 when there was a big show at Bailey Avenue. Don't you remember?
No.
We had
64.
1964. We had the Brothers of the Brush and the big parades, and there was a huge pageant on the ball field at Bailey Avenue. I was one of the narrators up in the booth, along with other people, and we put on this big show. And this may not have anything to do with it, but it might, because it looks like about that time period. Because it's a modern, relatively modern photograph.
Mm-hmm. The shoes, you can tell.
Somebody else, who was it? Dale Forget from Media Central called me the other day, and they had received some old 8mm footage of the parade with Louis Armstrong that year.
Oh.
The 4th of July parade, because Louis Armstrong believed, as we all did, that he was going along with the years, and he was 64 on the 4th of July. As we learned out after he died, that wasn't true, but he thought it was. And they had some great footage, and I have some great old 8mm footage somewhere of that parade. And
Now, in contrast to the modern one, and these girls are identified by this piece of paper.
Okay, you got to read it. Students at Plattsburgh Academy, 1862 and 63. The Plattsburgh Academy was the original high school on Oak Street.
Right.
And even predated this group. And I don't know if I can read them. Mary, is it Villa?
Looks like it.
Anna
Very
Stone,
difficult.
Fanny Villa or Vilas? It could be Vilas, huh?
I'll bet it is.
I bet you it is. Louise Morgan, Carrie,
C-R-A-S-T.
Hattie Stone, and Sarah Newton. and
Sarah Norton, isn't it?
Norton or Newton.
Celia
Yeah.
Moore,
Celia Moore.
Jenny McCaffrey, and Mary Norton.
Taken by E.P. Nichols, principal of Plattsburgh Academy, 1862, 1863.
It's quite a photo.
Just wonderful.
It's more of the Catholic summer school. It just shows you how many people kind of frequented it. Hundreds.
Great, great picture. Moving photograph. People in different poses. Looked like they had a lot of names written on the back here, and everyone's got a line through it. I have no idea why. They got a lot of names written there, and they're all Flemings and Gordons and Cassidys and who knows.
This is a young girl playing the harp, possibly a Hawkins, it says, or a Kehoe.
At Kehoe or Hawkins? Probably Hawkins. Oh, those are names. I thought you meant at the location. Or maybe it could be one of those families. Very famous families in this area, that's for sure. Isn't that a beautiful picture? That harp is a lot larger than she is. And this is, what is this? Do we know?
Catherine Freeborn. Portrait.
Catherine Bigelow Freeborn.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Another nice picture.
That's another photo of her in full dress.
Huh. Most of these pictures came in at different times, right?
Yes.
And they've just been cataloged by somebody who, with whatever information you could Wow.
City Hall, 1918 after completion. That's reproduction, but it was from a 1918 photograph.
Says, it says on the back, copy of a larger original print.
It's a
But
nice.
that's significant because it's a good photograph. One of the
Sure.
first programs we did together was with City Clerk Keith Hercolo and a tour of City Hall.
21st Infantry. Whoops.
Once again, it's fairly light.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wrote Billy on there.
I saw that.
Somebody had a family member involved there. They put Billy right over him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool photograph. No doubt somebody's relatives in there that might be watching our program at this time. Anybody know who Billy is? Let us know.
1990. I think everyone will be familiar with
everybody will
those
familiar
people.
with all these people. And the interesting part of it is, it seems like yesterday to me, and it's 15 years ago.
Right.
Mark Dane, Donnie Kasperzak, Gary Walker, Bob Hines, Bill Berman, George Rotella, and Mayor Clyde Rabideau. We just had a show on with his dad. Last night or no, the night before? A couple of nights ago here in the city of Plattsburgh, as we're recording this on the 2nd of June.
It's a log cabin in the Adirondacks or hotel.
And we should point out that Don Kasperzak is now the chairman of that the big Susquehanna, whatever, the 400th anniversary of the Champlain
Yeah. Quadricentennial, would that be? I guess.
Quadricentennial, yeah.
If it's not, I'll make it up.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Loch Ness. One of the
That's
great
quite a
camps.
photo.
Isn't that a great
Did you
picture?
notice the chair on the stump of the tree?
Isn't that beautiful? That's the greatest. Just don't lean over too far, huh?
Plattsburgh photographer, but
That's Baldwin Studios.
beautiful picture.
It-
FM Bull, chemist and druggist.
But I don't know if that's in the city of Plattsburgh.
I've done a
I
little
don't think
research
so.
and I can't find any advertising on that particular name.
Where is it taken? Do we know that?
I don't know that either.
There's mountains in the background.
But it was a local studio.
It was a huge storm. You got it? Yeah, Baldwin Studio. And there's a restaurant and FM Bull Chemist Drugstore.
I guess Peru or Keysville. Huh?
Where'd you? And there's a
think so?
jewelry store up the road I can see, but I can't quite read the name from here.
Baldwin, yeah.
Interesting.
This is a great shot. Hunters at a camp, probably in the Adirondacks, but look at the deer hanging.
Oh my goodness, they did well that day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deer. Good day, right? Talk about a motley crew, huh? Isn't that amazing? That's another one of those great photographs.
This town or village, almost looks like it was European, doesn't it?
Well,
With the fancy.
we've been
But it could
through
be the-
this before, Calvin.
Could be
This
the
deja vu is killing me here. See that little church?
Could be the Adirondacks.
We showed that little church somewhere and said, "Where's that little church?" And I don't think we came up with it on that day. Was it Santa Clara? Was it some other place? We're going to rely on. It's another Baldwin photograph.
Yes, but he's a Plattsburgh photographer. This kind of goes with it in a way. Looked like it might be part of the same town. Mounted the same.
It's
same.
an Adirondack town,
Baldwin was out of Keysville.
and Baldwin was out of Keysville, so it's in that area somewhere.
But this Baldwin gives his address as Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
It says
He had studios in Keysville, Plattsburgh. Didn't he have one in Saranac Lake,
I think so.
Calvin,
Okay.
as well? He was very, very prosperous photographer in those days.
but they all are mounted. pretty
Adirondack
much.
scenery. Great pictures,
Pretty
huh?
much the same way.
Excuse me.
That one, I'm not identifying.
This
Quite a photo, though.
also rings a bell. Either I'm dreaming it or I've seen this photograph before, and I can't remember if this was down in Port Douglas. But I bet you it was part of that Keysville group that we saw. Good picture though, isn't it? I think it was maybe down at maybe Port Douglas or somewhere down in that general vicinity.
It's the courthouse. It says 1875.
County courthouse burned in this is 1875, but it burned after that in the early 1900s. Wow. This is says property Clinton County historian. Some historian stamped that baby a long time ago and didn't want it out of his or her sight.
Is this the copy of
Burned
that?
in 1888. And that is a copy of this. It's an exact copy of this photograph. Holt, Johnson, LaValle, Reagan, Fitzpatrick. A lot of names on here. That's a long time ago. I've seen that copy of that
Yeah,
photograph.
we have several copies of the original. That's a copy too. Plattsburgh Fire Department, undated.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we did a couple of stories and tours, including the history of the Plattsburgh Fire Service, dating way back when, looking at old photographs, going to Hork and Hose, right? And going to the buildings, and we had a nice tour. Those are beautiful. That's a great shot.
This is extinguishing a fire, and it might well be the Opera House on the corner of Clinton and Marion.
Could be. Date unknown. Major fire.
Here are some more shots, possibly the same fire.
Yeah, nice pictures though. I think so. I think we've seen.
Some of these and
Some
other
of these,
larger photos, maybe.
Yeah, I think we've seen some of these photographs. They certainly will evoke historical
Mount
memories.
Assumption Institute. Where was that?
Well, that's where Seton was.
Oh, yes, yes.
And it's every time I drive by it, I look to see if they've made any progress in it, because as you know, Seton moved this year out to the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base and the
tear
school.
that down and make
Well,
a
tear down at least part of it.
Mhm.
Our latest word is that they were going to tear down the earliest wooden structure behind what you're looking at here and turn it into senior housing. There was a great deal of controversy because at first they thought it might become student housing. And as I said, every time I drive by, I look for progress. All I saw early this morning was 2 taxi cabs parked in their back parking lot with the guys talking to each other. And this is, we've seen this picture before and we know this person. Who is it?
1921.
Who is this?
That S comes to mind, the letter.
Who did we know that was a speed skating champion or barrel jumping? Oh, I'm so terrible this way. This guy was a barrel jumping champion. He was involved in a terrible accident, died in his 90s, lived on Route 9
Oh.
south of Plattsburgh. It's not Shea.
No.
That's the name you think of as associated
Yeah,
with the Olympics
with
in Lake
skating.
Placid, but it's
I don't have anything there.
championship races held behind the former Plattsburgh High School. So now we know where that is, down behind the high school in the old athletic field. So it could be anybody. And it could be that guy whose name I've forgotten completely today.
Says Lieutenant General Hugh Drum.
Either-
1939 maneuvers.
Yeah, I was going to say either somebody just got shot or they
I
fired
wonder-
off a cannon. Boy, you're talking about a cloud of dust.
If Fort Drum is named after him.
General Hugh Drum, that's correct there. He's on the left. It's a 15-gun salute. It says smoke in the background as if we couldn't see that.
Here's
As he
a-
arrived in Plattsburgh August
Oh,
14th to take command of the 1st Army maneuvers, Brigadier General Irving Phillipson Plattsburgh Barracks Parade Ground. That's another great shot, isn't it? What do you got in there? Another.
That was this.
Oh, okay, the same. The legend, as it were, huh?
View of Plattsburgh Normal School. 1890,
Oh, wow.
called Halftone, the photographers.
Halftone photography, right? I wonder if this one has ever been reproduced and enlarged. It's hard for me to pick out details with these old eyes of mine, you know?
This is that house we saw, or a building, custom house, post office.
Oh, that's another great old shot, isn't it? We always thank our viewers for their comments about our programs and
Oh, this is a great shot.
invite them.
The Smith Weed House, which is just across the road from us. This was the park that is across the road.
And this photograph has been reproduced and color touched and put in postcards and was world famous because of this area.
You kind of try to visualize it because the elevation was much lower. It's been filled in to raise the bridge for the railroad track. At that time, no. You would go down in a little dip. So therefore, that's why the park was there. It was easy to get to.
Isn't that neat? Yeah, I've seen that one before. I like it. Whoops, sorry.
Well, it looks like we're coming to the end
I love it.
of the box.
Yeah.
Hotel Champlain, viewed from the west, 1900.
That's another
It's
good
another
shot.
of those half-tone.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this photograph, but it's a very, very interesting perspective, isn't it, huh? Another great part of the history of the area.
Well, we've been through those hundreds and hundreds of photos for 2
We've done it again. And we will do it again because there are more pictures here. There's so much to do.
Many.
I think it's important for us to chronicle what you're doing here and what you're trying to do. We all have dreams in life. But one of our primary dreams, the three of us in this room, is to preserve and to perpetuate the history of this area. Every time we mention a name, it generates a feeling of emotion from somebody who's related or knew somebody.
True.
We've been around for a long time, so we recognize some of the people. My apologies for not being able to piece all this together in my mind because I've seen thousands and thousands of photographs and can't quite remember where I saw them all before. But at some point in time, you will have to have an entire section for photographs in that new museum.
Hopefully we have a gallery that will have the photographs and the artwork and the paintings, which you will be able to sit down and just take it all in.
It's difficult to display all that you have.
Yeah.
People are generous, and of course we engender that kind of spirit. People who are thinking of, as you said, scaling down, moving into senior housing, have these wonderful paintings and photographs. What do you do with them? Well, you contact the Clinton County Historical Museum. Their goal is to display as much of this at any given time, but all museums have to rotate their displays because you can't put everything out at the same time.
Well, you see, sometime your goal is to set up an exhibit, use photographs, use maybe clothing from that period or tools from that period and make a regular interesting exhibit for the public to look at. You know, you go back in time. I can recall one time when we were doing an exhibit of the little hamlet of Coopersville. In one room, our director and myself, and then Ralph was working with us, we were able to do the company store that was up there by using a few articles in a case and the wall to hang washboards and so forth on them, like you might find at that period of time. And then you would go around the corner of the room and you would come to the schoolhouse. We had 3 desks depicting a school, books from that period of time. Then the Coopersville Church were kind enough to loan us some artifacts that they had, including a couple of statues, which we placed in the corner along with pictures of the time that the steeple was blown off and went down through the building.
Oh my
And
goodness.
the point was sticking down
Come
near where
on.
the congregation might be.
I did
and,
not know that. What a story.
Then, as you left, we had the page open on a family Bible. It could have been anybody's, with a sermon that one of the pastors had given at that time. We were able to get that from the church, of a sermon that he gave on that particular time of the
Isn't that wonderful?
year. Yeah,
So you did
it was
take-
a great exhibit, but it took a lot of work. But it's fun doing it,
You got that Champlain
and that's yes, I do.
Calvin remembered that the book called The Town of Champlain 2000 that he worked so hard on had a photograph of that. I don't remember seeing that. If I did, I didn't know what it was until you just said the steeple came down and went right straight through the roof.
I believe it was during a high windstorm.
Wow. What a photograph.
We have some photographs of it here at the museum.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, and yet we've only begun. We've only just begun. I could sing the song, but then we'd never be able to come back here
Yeah.
again.
I've been here 11 years, and every time I go into another box, I haven't seen it before.
For me, they're all treasures. I hope I've
I
been able to transfer my enthusiasm for this history through the camera and the microphone and Ken and Calvin to our viewers. If we do nothing else, we hope we encourage other people to do the same, to talk to their kids, to talk to the school administrators and make sure they cover local history in the schools. They're now doing it again in the younger grades, and the kids absolutely love it. And if we can get young kids interested in this history, then after we're dead and gone, the next generation will come along and do what we're
Right.
doing, hopefully even better than we're doing it. And if you have a little museum in your neighborhood, go and support it, work at it, volunteer. The little museum that comes to mind when you were talking about that room that you made with all the little Moira, the old Moira Town Hall that we went to when they opened it as a museum was beautiful that way, because you walk in the door and here's the old store. And then you got a little schoolhouse here. You got a barber shop here. And then you got the schoolhouse. Can you picture it in your mind? You go around here, and then you got a post office. You got the little church there.
Your haircut at the barber shop.
Yeah, I sat down there, and they were going to cut my hair off. And I don't know if I won at the game of checkers, because I got a pot-belly stove right in the middle of it, and a checker game going on.
we did an Irish exhibit the same way
Did you?
by depicting the Irish during the potato famine that had to come to the U.S. in order to live, in a sense of the way. We even had a steamer trunk that was used during one of the voyages, and we displayed it only for a short time because it was covered with tar to keep the water out, because they had no place to store it below deck. It was quite huge. And when we opened it up, inside it was covered, like pasted on, newspapers of the 1800s and the famine and people who had died. I spent hours with my head in that box, and you'd come out dizzy because of the tar.
If we didn't think
But
you were
the-
nuts before, we do now, and you
but
know
the
what? I
story-
love it.
The
That's just
stories
what I
in
would
there
do.
were just unreal.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, and it was great. We even had a huge basket that was donated to us by a family that one might bring geese when they were coming over from Ireland. They would put a couple, 3 geese in there so they could start a new family of geese when they arrived in America. It was almost like bringing your food with you.
And they did. They had chickens and goats and
Sure.
cattle on board.
But
And
I was intrigued by the sealing of the trunk so water wouldn't get in and damage their goods.
I'd never heard of that
Because it
before.
was tied with rope above on the deck, and of course the waves would wash in.
They couldn't have come across in July because that tar would have melted.
But it's amazing what they went through.
It is, and it's I don't know. I'm a saver and preserver of stuff, as everybody in the world knows. So much stuff. My wife always says, "What am I going to do with all this stuff?"
We have a draw right there that we have done over the years, various exhibits, and you might be amazed at how much has gone on here in this museum.
I'm trying to get over there with him. He walked away from the microphone, but
And it
that's all right.
goes,
I think I can hear you.
back to the time of when the museum started.
I'm coming, Ken. Don't talk till I get there.
I can take them out.
Oh, that's all right. What do you got?
You can hold them up,
Oh, okay. I've got to go back now.
but many, many exhibits.
All right, get some over here. We're probably just about out of time. Maybe save some of this for another chapter.
Now, we've done exhibits called The Common Thread on all of our,
Oh, these are just some of the things we've done in the past on the quilts.
exactly.
Oh, I like that idea, common thread. Did you come up with that idea, or was that some
That was
other brilliant historian who...
That was some of our volunteers during the time would come up with that. Here's one on the Redford glass, which we've done.
Oh, yes. That's,
It
talk
just
about
shows you what we do have here.
a significant part of North Country history that we have mentioned in this,
And this one
before.
was in regards to the customs, U.S. Customs. We did an exhibit on them.
Revenue must be had.
One of the first shows that Bob and I did
Really?
in 1989, yeah.
No kidding. On the customs.
Yeah.
Well, he worked for customs, and that makes perfect sense. He was probably, was he retired by then?
Yes.
He was retired by
Then
then.
we did exhibit on costumes.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. One pair of hands.
This one pair of hands, it shows how people did their work in the early times, 1800s.
Oh, I see the trunk there. I've got a trunk down cellar that my mother used when she went to the Holy Land in the early part of the 20th century.
But
As I've
that's
mentioned before, I have a lot of
pretty
things.
neat, isn't it?
Yeah.
About all the things that have gone on here. This was an exhibit of the Keysville Pioneer Village.
In City Hall, huh? This is for all the people watching this story who say there's nothing ever to do around here. Come on down to the Clinton County Historical Museum.
This one you'll be interested in.
Well, I am. The ghost towns, which
are-
doesn't mean that there are ghosts there, but there are many, many ghost towns among all the counties in New York State, in all the locations in United States. We have almost more ghost towns than anywhere because industry has changed.
This
And
is an
a lot of these communities just cease to be.
These are all exhibits that we've had.
Yeah, very nice.
Now
I'm
we
glad.
could work on again, maybe, and bring them out.
I
Because,
think you ought to do it.
it's
I think you ought to do it this afternoon. One more, and then we got to get out of here. Historic courthouses of New York State, 1980. That's already
25 years old.
25 years
But
ago.
it
And
shows you what goes on here.
that is a beautiful building. Every time I look at that building, I'm in awe of that building. I love the architecture.
And these are exhibits.
It makes me feel at home. Calvin and I have stood in the exact same spot as those dudes were when they were just before they were inducted into the First World War. We stood there and covered how many 4th of July parades and walked around the
But
grounds and been inside of those old doors and climbed the old rickety stairs. And
if, one wonders what goes on here and what you can see,
well,
call
there's
us and see what we've
so
got
much to
going
do
on.
and see. And yes, we do invite people's comments. We joke about
Oh,
it.
sure.
But we'd love to have people comment. We'd love to have people offer to volunteer. Our
Yes.
congratulations to Suzanne
Suzanne.
for doing what she's doing here, because that'll be a huge
Well,
help.
it's a great help because just repackage them, refolding them are going to help to extend their life.
And I hope that we've whetted your appetites enough so that before, during, and after you will support this museum and what it does. write a check today if you feel like it. I mean, I'm unabashed in my
Membership.
marketing skills here. I don't
Well,
mind.
it's a very inexpensive thing to do on a rainy day, whenever sunny day. Come see us, and we'll show you what we have.
We'll make you a member as
Our
quick as you can
space
write
is
your name on that
Our
check.
space is limited, but we do have some major things out, and we could always show you what we have in storage, which we will bring out when we have more space.
And you know, we never want to belittle the memory of Sally Warren and her wonderful
No,
family,
this is-
because she contributed this tremendous old house at 3 Cumberland Avenue. It's just that she didn't know and we didn't know at the time that this would not be an ideal place to actually house the entire Clinton County Historical Museum. But it's a darn good thing it was here at the time.
Well, it'll be one of the greatest boosts that we could have in order to establish the museum in its own home.
It's interesting because you'd think after all these years the Clinton County Historical Museum would be in a permanent home and all settled in and ready to get into this new century. Well, guess what? We're on the move.
Well,
The old cattle drive will be heading right out there under the former
kind of
Plattsburgh
like
Air
what
Force
history
Base.
is about.
Yeah.
Load up your goods and travel to the next town.
And you know what? It's so much fun for Calvin and myself to be a part of this whole thing and to chronicle it for history down the road.
Exactly.
So, Ken Wray, thanks to you and John and Suzanne and all those people behind the scenes on the board
Right.
for all of their hard work. And to Roger, and you know, so many things are happening. This program will be aired sometime during the summer of 2005. Things are happening almost every weekend from now on. This city is blossoming and burgeoning, and a lot of it has to do with the history of this
History of the
area.
area.
And we are commemorating it and celebrating it.
Right.
Sometimes we call it the Battle of Plattsburgh or the Battle of Lake Champlain celebration, and we do celebrate our history, but when it comes to wars, they're all horrible, but we do commemorate them, and we celebrate the concept of growth and history and how we are here today because of those things that are
True.
because of the foundation that our forefathers laid for us. So thank you all for supporting what we do. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everybody. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.